So, welcome to another episode of the Phenomenal Women Club podcast, where you'll hear women being unapologetically phenomenal every episode. I'm Jordan, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of self-discovery, growth, and empowerment. As a social worker and a life coach for women, I've spent years working with phenomenal women from all walks of life, learning firsthand the power of shared experiences and collective wisdom. I created this podcast because I believe every woman has a unique story to tell. And through those stories, we can inspire, uplift, and empower one another. You can expect to hear from everyday women who faced obstacles, found their strength, and are living their truth. And we'll also share a practical advice and tools for you to embrace your own phenomenal journey. Whether you're seeking motivation, connection, or simply a reminder of your own strength, this is the place for you. So, grab a coffee, grab a tea, get comfortable, and let's get started. But before we jump into today's episode and I introduce my amazing guest, you guys already know what I'm going to do. I am going to ask you all to follow the pod. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram and TikTok with the same handle at the PW CLUB, which is short for the Phenomenal Women Club. Subscribe on YouTube. And, subscribe on any of the platforms where you listen to your podcast so that you are kept up to date with the episodes, like you get the information coming to you first. You want to be part of this community. So make sure you subscribe to all the platforms and let us jump straight in. So the phenomenal woman who I have with me today is amazing. She is a leadership and career coach. She is a keynote speaker, a digital marketing consultant. You know what? As I was researching this phenomenal woman, I said, maybe I don't need to sleep because she must not be sleeping. There was so much this woman does. She's a digital marketing consultant, social work manager, and the host of Dear Social Worker podcast. Please welcome our guest. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Well, what an introduction, Jordan. Thank you for having me. My name is Lisa Ann Edwards. And yes, I am a career and business coach, helping you to level up with strategy, confidence, and the right support. And with me in your corner, you will always win, because I truly believe that everyone thrives when they have someone in their corner.
I love it so much. The first question I was going to ask is, what do you want people to learn from this podcast? But I think I'm going to park that. The first question I'm going to ask is, do you sleep? Do you manage to sleep?
Beautifully. No problems whatsoever. I get asked this question a lot, and sometimes I'm reflecting. So I'm a reflector. I think, am I doing too much? And then I think, no, I'm fine. I'll know when I'm doing too much. There's moments where I feel like, okay, something has to go here. But the truth is, since I stepped back from frontline practice, and I know you'll ask me questions more about that shortly, I've been able to embrace my creativity, and I haven't held back on doing that. So I've just really focused on, what do I enjoy doing and how am I making the most impact? I've stuck to that formula and it's really working for me. And that's why I'm able to do several different things. And of course, let's be clear, I don't do all of those things every single day of the week, right? It's variety. And that's what being self-employed is all about.
I'm going to come back to those questions, how are you creating an impact? But from today's episode, what would you want a listener to take away from today's episode?
The main thing I want them to take away is going to be self-belief. I truly understand now, having stepped back from the security of full-time work to the unsurety of self-employment, that it takes bucket loads of courage, confidence, and self-belief. You really need those three elements. And I think the umbrella of those elements is a vision. You've got to have a vision for yourself, your business, your work, your life, your money. You've got to be a visionary in some way. So what I really want people to take away from this is, don't be afraid to take the risk, because I'm going to be telling you stories about plenty of risks I've taken. I think it's really important people understand that it's a cliche saying, but without risk, there isn't any reward. Without the risk, the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't be sat here with Jordan right now. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'll be behind a computer in a local authority doing my social work role. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the point is that I wouldn't have the emotional capacity and availability to do what I do now and be in contact with phenomenal women like Jordan who provide these platforms. So the title of Phenomenal Woman, I truly accept, I humbly accept that, because for me, for what I've achieved in the time that I've achieved it, I can say that I'm proud of myself.
And you should be, because honestly, the social work space in the UK as well is, I think it's very disjointed, but I think you've really come in and connected different social work groups, social work kind of influencers, if you like, social media, people who talk about social care, and you've really been able to be an anchor for the social work industry. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Obviously, it's difficult. You don't see yourself the way other people see you. So it's nice to hear that reflected back, because what I feel I offer is probably more on a one-to-one basis, because that's where I feel the real reward of my work comes to fruition. So it's nice to see from your perspective that you see as it's the work that I offer is a consolidating offering, really. That's lovely to hear.
No. Well, we've kind of jumped the gun a bit. So social work, what made you decide, you woke up and said, okay, social work is for me?
It's an interesting question, because I think most social workers get asked this, and I do wonder with other professions whether they are asked the question, well, what made you want to be a graphic designer? I'm not so sure of the spirit behind the question of being a social worker. It's like, are you mad? Like, why are you doing social work? Are you, and I do wonder about that question, but of course I will answer it. But I do think there's something about the connotation of social work that leads us to want to wonder, why do you want to be in social work? For me, my story began working with children and families in nurseries. That's where I began, worked my way up to, I think it was play scheme manager at the time, then worked my way up to nursery manager. And then I went back to study. I completed a foundation degree in early years, and I went on to do the BA in early childhood studies. And then during my nursery management experience, that's where I encountered safeguarding at a more first-hand level. And that's where I felt I could make the most impact in social work. So that's when I decided to move into social work and went and studied at University of Nottingham and completed the MA in social work.
Okay, and you were a social work manager as well. So you were progressing along the kind of route of social work into management. What would you say the biggest difference is from kind of social work, from the first sort of stages to management? What did you find was the biggest maybe leap or difference in those roles?
That's a really good question. For me, I believe it sits in the responsibility that you have for managing your staff. Your staff are your eyes and your ears, and your relationship with them has an impact on the practice. So for me, it was about making sure I had solid relationships with the teams that I was working with. And we would go out, we would have team meetings over breakfast, we would have lunch together, and, we would really support each other. So for me, the major difference was around the teamwork element. I saw what the managers I had in the past didn't provide. And I was going to make sure that I wasn't going to be a manager that didn't provide the support or the listening ear or taking action or being slow to sign things off, all of those kind of things that would slow me down as a social worker. I made a vow as a manager to do that. To not do that, sorry. And of course, using my coaching skills within that really came in very handy, and it really helped cement some of those relationships, which I still have some of those now.
Do you ever look back and think, if it wasn't social work, I would have been doing something else? Like, sometimes I look back and think, if it wasn't social work, maybe I would have been, no, definitely not a teacher. I don't have patience to be a teacher, I don't think. But, oh, maybe I would have been, in marketing. Maybe I would have been in PR. What would have been the other career path journey, do you think, that you might have taken?
I always wanted to be a graphic designer. And I always enjoyed the performing arts. So I used to be a ballroom dancer many, many years ago. I loved it, still love it now. And I think I probably would have pursued a career in the creative arts. But hence why, let's just bring that full circle to how we started this. She was like, well, you do so many things. I believe it's a reflection of the creativity that I enjoyed when I was younger. So I'm able to bring that into what I do now. So I think that's what I do. But I will add, when I was about 13 and trying to decide what it is I wanted to do, it wasn't always very clear to me what I wanted to do. And I started my experience in a play scheme I used to attend as a child. And I loved working with children from that moment. So I just followed that right through and did my BTEC in early years and all the rest of it. But one of the things that really stands out to me is the work that you do with children and families. It lasts a lifetime. And I think it's really about the core of who you are, being a person who can help others. That being said, when I was 13 years old, I had to take a non-verbal, I don't know whether you remember these, non-verbal reasoning test.
Yes.
And the outcome of that test would indicate what would be the best professions for you to go into. And when I've kept that test and I look back on it now, and social work is on that list. And I didn't recognize it at the time because obviously that's not what I went to do straight away, which indicates to me that the core of who I am was truly aligned with being in the helping profession in some form, whether that's counseling, coaching, or social work, or even customer service was one of the main elements that came out of that report. It certainly is who I am. So you could argue I didn't have a choice. I would end up in social work, whether it's now or whether I'm 50 or 60. It would have happened because it certainly is part of my character.
And but I think, especially when you are young, you're developing your skills as you go with your life experiences. You're developing your skills. The core of who you are. I really like how you phrase that, is be informed. What do you have any particular experiences that you think help to really form the core of who you are?
That's a really good question. I think I'll put this down to my parents. They were very attentive, very caring, and to a certain degree, particularly my father, he opened me up to many creative outlets. So my father was a musician, traveled the world with different bands and all of that stuff during the 80s. And he would take me to different theatre shows, different music shows. I was always backstage and just really in tune with all of that. And he was always such a helpful person. So I think some of it is about it being modeled. Some of it is about the experience that I have. And then I think what really began to shape it is that I ended up living in a single parent household because my dad moved away to pursue his music dream and didn't stay in didn't stay in contact, I could say. Not like the relationship we had before, where he'd pick me up from school and he would, really be there. So I think the element of absence created the side of me that wanted to care for other people back then. And that coupled with the experiences that I had with both of my parents, being caring, opening up those different experiences, that then began to shape my character.
Like, isn't it so when you kind of reflect back, you think, oh, that's probably where there was a bit of a turn that got you onto that path. Yeah, I definitely, and I see, and it's really nice to hear kind of the generational musical element there as well. Like, that's really cute. I actually love that. So you've been in the social work industry, you've been there working with families, working with children, safeguarding, managing people. When you look at kind of all that's going on in society right now, what would you say is what would you say are the kind of main like social issues that are really impacting children and families right now?
I have a saying when it comes to things like that, and I say anything that's happening politically, it affects us on the front line. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's fiscal, whether there's a change in government, whether there's a change in even down to the mayor. All of these changes that happen on a political scale, if you're looking at this from an ecological point of view, it has an impact on us on the front line. Unfortunately, the pressing issues that were 20 years ago are the pressing issues that we have now. Staffing, recruitment, retainment, anti-racist practice, social work England referrals, and a lot of those being from people that are Black or from ethnic groups. We have the same issues, unfortunately. And those issues, literally like fashion, unfortunately, they just cycle around. There's a time where it dies down a little bit. There's times where it's very much on the agenda. And I think we're still in a very difficult position in terms of the social work profession. There's a problem with retention. It's a major problem. There are structures and changes that local authorities are attempting to make. And for some, it is successful. I know I did agency for 9 years, possibly 10. And the amount of agency workers back then compared to what it is now, there has been a shift. But I think the difficulty that the social care industry have now very much lies in finances and very much lies in retention. The finances affect the services that are available, or in most cases now not available. That impacts on the services that social workers can provide to the families that they're working with. And then you have the other issue around retention, where there's a lot of issue in relation to racial trauma, workplace trauma, moral distress that's happening, burnout, stress at very high levels. People are feeling bullied and oppressed by some of the systems that are outdated within the local authority walls, as I call it. So I don't think I'm going to say anything profound or different here. The issues are still remain the same.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sadly so true. And this is also why it really annoys me when people say, oh, like, I don't really vote, or like politics isn't for me, because it is for you. It's so ingrained in every single decision that's made. It's so ingrained in your whole life, to the point where maybe you don't see it on a day-to-day, but it has literally shaped every single thing and every decision that you have made. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that we need a lot of, well, anyway, everybody knows we need a lot of social change. So I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me a bit about your coaching. You've kind of transitioned into coaching, and who are you coaching? Is it kind of everybody? Do you have a particular target audience?
Mm-hmm. So my coaching journey began off the back of being burnt out and having to take time out of social work, not as a social work manager, but as a social worker, partway through my career. I sought coaching as a way of trying to develop some resilience and found it really useful. And I thought, might be a good idea for me to consider this. But before I did that, I remember I was on the phone to my friend Paula, and I was just complaining about the stress I was under. Again, I'm going to emphasize the again. And you know what this girl said to me? I have to say girl, she's not a girl, but I have to say it like that. You know what this girl said to me? She said, will you just shut up? You know, you're like, what, who are you talking to? What do you mean? And she said, you've been complaining about this now for the past 2 years. What's the plan? Go and do something. Be a counselor, be a life coach, be this, be that. And I remember going to bed so confused. I'll explain that. I went to bed. I remember it so vividly. And I'm looking around in the dark room and I'm sat up like this. And I'm like, do something other than social work. But I've gone to university now. You know, I'm going through the whole thing. I've done my 2 years. I've done this. I've done my 5-7 years now. What do you mean do something else? Like, how is that? My mind was so stuck on where I was. I didn't even have a clear vision or the idea to think that I could do something other than local authority social work, because my mind was just so focused on supporting the children and families that I had to support and getting through the next day. And when you're burnt out that way, you don't have the emotional capacity to think of anything else other than the tasks that are necessary. That was truly the catalyst moment for me when I began seeking out different motivational speakers, different ways of thinking, looking at different types of careers. What does it look like to be a coach? What does a coach do? You know, how do they get paid? You know, the list started growing and growing, and that really began the catalyst for me making the decision to become a coach. Now, qualified as a performance coach with NLP, and I really enjoyed the course. And I set upon finding clients, which is the part that I didn't know at the time. And I've been on that quest ever since. So I then returned to social work and then had a private coaching practice part-time. And that's literally just been ongoing. And I've coached business owners, entrepreneurs, social workers, doctors, service managers, you name it. I've coached so many different types of people over the years. To answer your question specifically, I now primarily coach social workers. So from student social worker up to service manager. And either the local authority will commission my work, or the bulk of my work actually comes from social workers approaching me independent of their employer because they want the confidentiality and the independent support, and they pay for the coaching themselves. The other element to my business is coaching business owners. And this is something that I really enjoy because I remember that night that I've just explained to you where it's like, I can do my own thing, but there's so many different things from business. So for me now, what I love to do is help people start businesses, structure their businesses, and getting them in a position to showcase their businesses. And I can do that from my experience. I've had plenty of experience in coaching through that. And also my events that I host, there's opportunities there for people to advertise, to speak, and to have their own stall. So I try and make it, that's why I call it the Social Work Coaching Hub. I try and make it so everything that I do, they all work together in some way. So whether it's just life coaching or business coaching, there's opportunities for you to showcase your work and your knowledge in my events or on my podcast, etc. So that's what I do.
Lovely. And can we just shout, was it Paula? Who's your friend, Paula?
Paula, yes.
Let's just shout out Paula. Because woo! Because sometimes you need something else.
Yes.
Because you don't see it. You are just there grinding along.
Yes.
Helping people. And you need somebody to say to you, listen, you've been complaining. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Good on Paula, yeah.
The whole trajectory of my career.
Yeah. Just in one phone call.
Yeah. The experiencing the coaching wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, because after that, I've still got to go back to work and now deal with 500 emails because I've been off with work stress, right? So I'm back into it as soon as I step through that door. I needed someone to say, have you thought of something else?
Yeah. Basically, and it is a career that's so all encompassing. Once you're in the door, it is somebody I don't know if Paul is a social worker or not, but it's somebody outside who's looking in who can give you that advice that you're not going to hear.
Yes. And this is where the bravery in friendships come in, I believe, because if we didn't have a certain type of rapport, I think it can make it more difficult for friends or even just work colleagues to say certain things to you that will help you to see things differently. A lot of people were afraid of offending people, falling out with people. And whilst that has some merit, of course, it's ideal to try and keep the peace. This is a prime example of it working out beautifully.
I mean, the importance of especially female friendships as well, just as you said, is taking a friend to speak to you and say, look, think about something else, consider all your options. I think that's so important, especially for women who can sometimes just get so caught up in the everyday and not wanting to deviate from the plan. Because at the end of the day, women, this is the Phenomenal Women's Club. I think women have so many skills, but often will struggle to think about how those skills are transferable, how those skills can be monetized, who else could benefit from those skills outside of family and friends.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, with the clients that you take on, I think I'm especially kind of focusing on the clients who are women. What do you see coming up as the biggest kind of obstacles or the consistent obstacles?
Confidence. Massive. The confidence to advocate for yourself, to advocate for others, to start the business, to leave the workplace and try another workplace, to try a different role within the social work industry. Those are the main 5 things that come up without fail. Without fail.
And it's so, honestly, thing is, it irritates me so much to hear that. But I know myself that I will have my moments where I'm like, I can't do that. But I'm also a social worker. I'm also a coach. I absolutely get it from both sides. So, and what sort of advice do you give those women who are saying to you, this is not going to be a free coaching session. Let me not to you. If you guys want her services, links in the bio. So
you heard. No, yes. What I'm going to say to that, Jordan, is very demure and very mindful.
Always, I try, very cutesy. Always. But what basic advice would you give to a woman who's maybe listening to this pod? She's thinking about doing something as well. Her confidence is maybe not where she wants it to be. Is there any sort of advice you'd give to her?
So this is a good moment to make a distinction between coaching, mentoring, therapy, and counseling. They are not the same. And coaching is standalone. Mentoring is about a mentor having expertise, and the mentee is designed to follow the mentor and their advice. It's more of an advice giving style service. Therapy has a little bit more of a relaxed feel, and sometimes advice isn't given in therapy. Sometimes it's just about creating the artwork and talking about your reflections of the artwork. Counseling is very much about an exchange between 2 people, but the person that seeks the counseling, it's more about them doing the talking, depending on the type of counseling you seek. Now, where coaching is different is that coaching is about a partnership discussion, just like we're having a conversation right now. But the premise of that discussion is actually rooted in social work values. It's a person-centered approach. So the coach believes that the coachee, the client, already has the answers. And it's my job as a coach to ask the right questions using professional curiosity and questioning techniques to help you find your solution. So that is the distinction. And that is going to be one of the reasons why I won't answer the question in full around the advice, right? Because as a coach, the idea is I will be asking you questions for you to explore the answer, explore the options, and potentially explore what's holding you back or what's preventing you from moving forward. Now, when it comes to the advisors, okay, I want to do something, but I'm not sure how. That's a massive question again. I'm not sure how, I'm not sure when, I'm not sure if, right? The first thing I would advise you to do is decide. You've got to make a decision. Yeah. And I'm going to talk to you like Paula talked to me. You've got to make a decision. Stop flapping around, stop living in the grey area, don't be wishy-washy about it. What do you want? Do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to move? Do you want to stay on the amount of money you're earning right now, or do you want that to increase? Do you want to be a business owner, self-employed, or do you want to have something where you are working part-time and still doing social work or whatever your job is full-time? You have got to make a decision. Now, if you're struggling to make a decision, there may be 2 or 3 things at play. One is you're fearful. One of the main things holding people back is fear. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of taking the risk, fear of failing. You have got to make a decision as to what is a calculated risk within the fear that you're experiencing. And sometimes coaching can help you understand, unpick, and then help you get to your decision. The other element to this, I truly believe, really sits in the place of people not really having an awareness of who they truly are. If you know who you are, more than likely, you will at least have an idea of what you want. Therefore, your only question would be, how do I make this happen? If you're not at the stage where you're asking the question, how can I make this happen? That tells me you haven't yet made a decision on what it is you want to do. Because these decisions, they go in stages. You have a thought and you have your behavior, which is the action that follows up with this thought. You may not even have got to the place where you've made a decision. You're not even on the thought continuum, just like I wasn't when Paula spoke to me. So I know I'm giving you the long version answer to this, but I want people to truly understand this is really about you understanding who you are first. You've got to decide, what do you want for your life? What do you want for your career? What do you want?
And these are the tough questions, isn't it? These are the tough ones that I think we struggle to answer, but yeah, good. Okay, some food for thought. I hope everyone's taking some notes because those are the questions. Okay. What would you say? Obviously, you know, you're in social work. Coaching Hub is doing all the things. You're doing all the things. What would you say that your impact has been on the industry?
See, that feels like a difficult question for me to answer because I feel like my true impact can only be measured by what people say about me, whether it's to me or behind my back when I'm not in the room. That is the true impact, I believe. I can tell you what people have said. And I think we go back to how you first introduced me, which gives an indication of the kind of impact that I'm having. And it also showed you the incongruence of where my mind is at and where your mind is at about that impact. So to an extent, I don't feel I'm the best person to answer that, but I do like the question because it encourages me to reflect on that. For me, I would say I have tried to provide services and products which I would have liked to have had access to when I was in frontline practice. So, for example, last year I wrote maybe 4 or 5 journals and planners for social workers. One of the main ones is called the Social Work Practice Wellbeing Planner. I think there's another element to that name, but never mind. I got a lot on people. It is what it is. You can. And what that does, it incorporates practice and well-being and your personal life in the same planner. Because as a social worker, I could be on the phone, you know, on hold, for example, trying to get hold of the court or whatever. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to book the dentist appointment. I need to book my MOT. I need to do, you know, whatever it is in my own personal life. I'm writing it on whatever piece of paper I can find. And then I've forgotten about it because I've moved on with life once someone's answered that phone and I'm back in my diary and back into my emails. So what I wanted to do was create a place where everything sits in the same place. You can write your appointments. You can write down what you've said on a call. You can record your supervision. There's some reflection pieces in there. My favorite page is like the compliments page, where you actually write down the compliments you receive, because we're terrible at doing that as social workers. Awful. So that's one of the pieces that I'm really proud of, because I've been able to sit down and really think about what would have helped me in practice, and having everything in one place in a written form, that's one of them. So I would say that in one of the impacts is me being able to incorporate well-being, professional everyday practice, and your personal life in one space. The other way in which I do that is through the event. So this year, I created the Empowering Social Workers Conference, which is a London conference, and it was a sold-out conference, which was just fantastic. We had about 10 different speakers with panels and all of that jazz. It was so good. And the reason why it was so good is the feedback. The feedback said, we have not had this space before where we can, in quotes, socialize as social workers on a Saturday. Yes, we're talking about social work, but we also get to just talk. We could just be normal people. There's an unspoken culture between us all. You know, we don't have to talk about emails and all this stuff. We just know. So we're able to really join the dots. And as a result of that, there's been several collaborations from people who met on that day, and they've come back to me and said, oh, I've now got this person on my podcast. I've now got them speaking at my event, all because I met them at your event. I heard them speak on what, and you know, it's just great to see people come together. So I would say that's another element. The other side of this is the other two events I have. So I've got the first National Black and Diverse Safeguarding Professionals Conference, which is pulling together public service workers and social workers primarily that are from Black and global majority ethnic groups. And the idea is that we all come together in one place on one accord, because we're all on different islands doing different things across the country. Why not have one space on the national level? This has never been done in history before, ever. So the impact, I would say, I can't speak of that now, but what I do know from the onboarding forms is that people are like, I've never had this space before. I've never had a space where I'm just surrounded with people who look like me, who share the same cultural values as me, and we're able to have the important conversations for me personally and the profession. For me, my impact really sits in the place where I can see there needs to be a form of support, a form of coaching, or a form of community. And I sit within those three areas. I sit on that continuum. So I'm not sure I fully answered the question, but hopefully it's given you insight into how I see things.
You know what? You answered the question so well that you answered the following segment of the podcast. So let me get into that, and we'll go, and I will reiterate what you said. So this is the part of the podcast where we talk about, you know, every woman should have a phenomenal toolbox where you can kind of dip into it, and you can get resources that are going to help you feel empowered in your personal and professional life. You know, it could be a book recommendation, it could be an app, it could be a podcast, whatever it is. But I think you just gave everybody about 2 or 3 different resources to lean on. And I think that is so helpful, because I think we need to have, especially when we don't know where we're moving to, what direction we're going in, we need to have something where we can say, okay, let me reach into my toolbox, let me get this out, let me attend, you know, one of the social work coaching hubs, networking events, let me pick up this, let me pick up that. And I think you've just given so many resources just there in your answer alone. So thank you. Do you have anything else that kind of comes to mind that you think you would want a listener to maybe consider putting in their toolbox as well? I know you've got an event coming up on October 19th as well, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So the first part of the question about the toolbox, is this a toolbox that is based on resources I provide, or is this a toolbox just in general? Because there's an answer for both.
Just in general. So maybe resources that you provide, anything that you've seen or that you use that you'd want to share, anything.
Okay. I love that question because it really will help the listener reflect on themselves. And I hope that my story is going to help you with that. But I'm going to take a step back and just share the story of how I left frontline social work and how I moved into full-time social work, because that's going to lead into the toolbox. So January 2023, I made the decision to step back from the manager role that I was in and set up the social work coaching hub. Part of that decision was led by my want to try and make it being self-employed. The other side was that I could see that I will be much more effective and have a greater impact if I was to step back from frontline practice and dedicate myself to the coaching hub. So I stepped back, and I got to be honest, I didn't have a foolproof plan. I just knew what I wanted to do. And I had to pull on every resource that I had and more to try and make it happen in a short amount of time. People have houses to run, you know. I'm just saying. Just saying, right? I'm just adding that, sprinkling that in there with the salt, yeah? So as a result of that, you have to think quickly, you have to be resourceful, you have to be creative, and you have to be able to monetize. Now, the question I'm going to ask you guys as the listener is, what do you think I needed in my toolbox to enable me to take action so quickly in order to turn it around where I don't have to step back into frontline practice? What do you think was needed in my character in order to sustain that, in order to even think it was possible? Now, while you're thinking of that answer, that in turn answers the question, what should be in your toolbox? I didn't know this was going to work. I didn't know that at all. Having one or two clients doesn't tell you it's going to work. I didn't know about the longevity. I didn't know about sustainability. I didn't have a financial plan. Didn't have a foolproof business plan. As you go along, you learn these things. I had a plan, but it wasn't detailed enough. It didn't have enough depth. It didn't have the sustainability element, which is key in business, right? I'm just being honest with you, keeping it 100.
Yeah. I mean, I've done the same thing. I get it. Yeah, you jumped in. You did.
Jumped in.
Yeah.
Jumped in.
You stepped with fear, and ultimately the plan was a skeletal plan. Somehow, you're gonna have to put some flesh on the bones somehow.
Had to find the flesh on the bone somehow. And one thing I did know, and this is where the toolbox comes in, so make sure you get your pens and your paper. I'm telling you, faith will move mountains.
Yep.
I'm telling you now, faith will, capital W-I-L-L, it will move mountains. If I didn't have faith in God, and if God wasn't in my corner, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Again, I would be probably working overtime in a local authority office somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a belief, you most certainly need to lean on it, and not just leaning on it just for it to be a success. This is about character, and this is about strategy. You've got to strategize your prayer life in order to make it. You've got to. You're going to be on your own, and you can't be out there on your own. You're going to need, as the old school Jamaicans would say, you're going to need some backative. Yeah? Backative. If you don't know what that means, you won't find it in a dictionary. I can't explain it to you. You either just know or you don't. Yeah?
Go and ask your Jamaican friends if you don't know.
Yeah. Do that. Me nasty and explain that. And what happens before the faith is, again, knowing what you want, but most importantly, the self-belief.
Yeah.
Most importantly, is the self-belief. If you truly believe you can't do it, I'm telling you, the work that you put out there, it will reflect that.
Yeah.
Will reflect that you're not sure, you're insecure, not sure of the pricing, not sure of the name, not sure of this X, Y. It does show in what you do as a business owner, but even if you're just moving to another job, whatever it may be. So the point I'm making here is you have got to believe in yourself. Now, one thing I want to leave you with, because I could not have done this without God. One thing I want to leave you with is this quote. And it's a quote from me. Look your challenge straight in the eye and just say, I've got this.
I think that's the title of the pod. I think that's the title of the pod. So I think you've given me the title of the pod right there. Yeah. Look your challenge in the eye and say, I've got this.
I've got this. And that's I'm telling you, you'll make it. If that's what you want to do, you will do it. I am living proof. I didn't have any backative when I stepped back from practice. And look where I am a year, 18 months or so later. I've got 3-4 staple events. I've got a podcast that hit number 2 in the social work category in the country. I've been awarded Best Coach in Birmingham 3 years in a row. I'm telling you, the door's open. I've written 4, 5, 6 different journals and planners. I'm telling you, the point I'm making here, this is not about ego, bragging, nothing to do with that. I'm just trying to show you that I started with nothing. I've started with nothing. A skeleton plan, as Jordan described it beautifully. It's a skeleton plan. And look what it's materialized into. Just with a sprinkle of self-belief, a sprinkle of faith, and making sure you're implementing the plan. You can make it happen. Whatever it is you want to turn your hand to, it's in your spirit for a reason. Not because it's a possibility. No, it's there because it's a vision that's in your heart, which means if you've got the vision, God will make provision for that to come to fruition. You've just got to take the step. You've just got to open the door. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. And the worst thing you can do is worry about the how. It's the worst thing you can do. The how will hold you back. The how will get you counting your pounds and your pennies thinking, I haven't got enough saved if this doesn't work. The how is going to keep you not putting up that website. The how is just simply an obstacle. That is you trying to control the situation, putting fear right in the middle of what you want to do. And you literally need to feel the fear, as the book says, and do it anyway. And I promise you, in one way or another, it will work out for you. And it works out even more when you fail along the way, you know.
Yeah, well, this is it. Failing. What's it? Failing forwards is a
failing
thing.
Forward. You've got to be prepared to fail.
Do you know what? I was gonna ask like the final wrap-up question, but then you gave us a word at the end. You gave us a word at the end.
No,
do not ever apologize. That was a word. I can hear the listeners scribbling the advice down as they should be, because you know. The question was going to be, you know, what does it take to make a phenomenal woman? You know, what is that? But I think you've explained it in that you jump in, you do what needs to be done, you listen to what is on your spirit, you listen to what is on your heart, and you move forward with it. You move it forward.
It's a simple equation, but we can make it difficult.
you can make it. That's it, isn't it? I mean, honestly, thank you so much. That is such vital advice and such great words to end with. I can't believe we're already at the 50-minute mark. Where has the time gone? Where can the listeners find you? Plug everything.
So I founded a company called Social Work Coaching Hub, and this is what the Coaching Hub provides. So if you are a social worker, I provide one-to-one leadership. So if you're in a leadership position or want to step up to leadership, and general career coaching. And that can include art therapy, as I'm trained in art therapy. And I love a program that I do called Healing Hearts. It's a 12-week program, and it's all about art therapy. And you can listen to that, to one of my clients who's done that program on my Dear Social Worker Let's Talk podcast, available on all platforms. And the podcast is very much focused on personal development for social workers. We don't talk about assessments and how to write reports. It is focused on you, because I think if you pour into you, it's going to show up well in your practice, and you'll be emotionally available to those you're serving. I offer keynote speeches and training for social workers looking at trauma-informed approaches, anti-racist approaches. Just go straight to my website and you can find that, socialworkcoachinghub.com. As you heard earlier, I write books and publications. I haven't Have I written any this year? I'm not sure I've written any this year. They were all last year, but they're all available on my website. So have a look at those. And one of the things I love doing and I'm good at doing, and I will say this proudly, is I know how to bring people together. I know how to get a community together. So I have 4 main events. Social Workers Connect, which is just a social event where we eat, have something to drink, relax, talk, and network. We have the Empowering Social Workers Conference, and it's simply a place where you can be inspired and empowered. That is taking place 15th of March next year in London. I have the Social Work Coaching Hub Award Show. Again, that's happening 15th of March. So I've got 2 events on the same day. Who does that? Me. Right idea to do that. And that is to recognize coaches, mentors, anyone that supports social workers in practice, and to recognize the social work content creator community. We've got loads of people who are creating podcasts and blogs and doing some great work out there, apps, etc. We want that to be recognized through the Social Work Coaching Hub Award Show. And I also have, as I mentioned earlier, the first National Black and Diverse Safeguarding Professionals Conference, the first one in history. You need to be in the building. I'm telling you now. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it just because it's my event. I'm just saying, because this event has never been done before, there's only going to be one first of this event. I'm just saying. I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah. Not all, but it's only going to be
absolutely. And then for my business owners, or for those considering starting, structuring, or showcasing their business, I do LinkedIn profile reviews, short form video production, and also I do business consulting and coaching. So if you're thinking about starting your own business, not sure where to start, if you own a business and you want to scale up and level up, I am definitely the coach for you, because with me in your corner, you will always win. I've told you my story, so there's no way you're going to be with me and not get the results that you want. So I would highly recommend, if that's something that's on your spirit, jump on it now, get on a consultation with me. It's free. Go to socialworkcoachinghub.com and we can just get you started. It's all about getting started. The first step always seems like the hardest, but once you see there is actually a path after you take that first step, then it really is up to you to make that step to implement. What I'm going to add on to this here is it's very important that people understand, when coaches, counselors, therapists are offering you a service, it is not free.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying. There's a value that we're offering you that can potentially change the trajectory of your whole life, of your whole career. It could turn your business around where you are earning X amount. You can't expect that for £50 an hour or £20 an hour. I have to reiterate that, because I think people misunderstand the concept of A, being self-employed, and B, offering a service. For some reason, there seems to be a misconception about service-based businesses offering their expertise and their time for free. And if you are a business owner listening to this or thinking about being in business, I'm telling you now, these are the conversations we would need to have. It's great for you to support others. I do that willingly. I get people messaging me every single day and I will reply, but it will get to a certain point where I say, I think you need a session here. And that is not me changing kind of the dynamic of the relationship. That's me with being a business owner. You're in business because you want to make money and you want to sustain. And you don't do that by giving away time, expertise, knowledge, books, products for free all the time. It's important people understand that. You're nodding, Jordan. You've had experience of that, right?
You know what it is? And I love that you added that at the end. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but I am such an advocate. I think women's labor is so undervalued, and I think women in particular, I don't think men have the same kind of difficulty, but women in particular struggle to put a monetary value on what we do, which is why we
know our value.
Literally, it's not for free. It's not for free. They're the cost. So I'm pleased that you confirm that. Good.
Yeah. Yes. A monetary value. And that's a whole different podcast that we could talk for another 2 hours on. But the monetary value probably and still doesn't add up to the value you really are.
Absolutely.
Let's just speak facts. So with that in mind, you have to place yourself within the market. You will have competitors. You need to do your SWOT analysis, etc. And you need to place yourself in the market at least, so you're in the running, right? But you have to be comfortable with the prices that you charge, so much so that if you don't feel a resentment when you say, yes, £10 an hour is absolutely fine, or £10 a month, yeah, that's manageable. And you're going to feel like, well, it's not really that much money. That will affect the service you provide. Just like you being burnt out as a social worker or as an accountant or as a lawyer, that's going to affect the service you provide to the clients, your service users, your children and families, because there is a sense of resentment within you.
And it's such a hurdle to get over. But that's for our next episode. When I invite you back on, let us start right there. Thank you so much for coming on today. It has been invaluable. I'm so sure the listeners have taken notes. You guys go and add and follow and check out the website. I'm going to put the information in the bio for wherever you're listening to this on my socials as well. Follow the podcast at the Phenomenal Woman Club. And the information will also be on there in the episode information. Thank you so much. And guys, until next week when the next episode drops, take care. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.